All right. Good evening and welcome to our session. Today we're doing should be session number 10, and then with lesson number 7. All right, so we are going to be focusing on the cybersecurity side this week. Today we're focusing on the cybersecurity. Last week we were looking at what you call the Linux commands, like how to navigate in a Linux machine. All those different commands, we said they are building up to the knowledge of you being able to navigate in a Linux machine, and then also being able to run different scripts so you can be able to, let's say, to hack into any system, depending on what exactly you're trying to retrieve or what exactly you're trying to get from that. So we want to continue from where we left off, which we're focusing on those Linux commands. And then I did a bit of a demo where we're trying to hack into one of the systems, and then we managed to do that with one of the commands that we used. So I want to take it back one step backwards and then just try to explain what are the steps that come into pen testing when it comes to cybersecurity. What is that? What are the steps that we are going to take? Let me just first confirm that you guys on Teams, can you hear me? Am I audible enough? Can you hear me? Is there any noise that we're hearing from my side? Can you hear me? All right, there's a thumbs up. Guys, I seem to do it there. There's a thumbs up. You guys can hear me. All right, so we're focusing on the cybersecurity side of things, right? So last time we said when it comes to hacking, when watching movies, like they press like 3 or 4 buttons and then someone says, I'm in, I've managed to get into the system. But in reality, that's not what it is. Like, it's not like that. It's not even close to that. Because when it comes to ethical hacking or hacking, we're focusing on the ethical side of it. So on the ethical hacking, let's say the client will come to us and be like, okay, I want your organization to do pen testing on my infrastructure. So pen testing would be us looking for vulnerabilities within the infrastructure, checking the strength of those controls that they have within their network. So you will notice that we start with different steps. There is planning and scoping. So planning and scoping phase, this is when as an organization, we are putting together the plan, the outline to say, okay, how are we going to hack this system? Who's going to do what? What tools do we need in place? How many days do we need to do this? What are the do's and don'ts in this particular network? What are we allowed to do? The scope, how far are we supposed to go? Because when it comes to scoping, the client will tell you, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to test. You are not allowed to test my client systems. You're not allowed to do 1, 2, 3, or you are allowed to do all this. So it's different from when you are doing like a threat actor. A threat actor is someone who's gaining access into some people's systems without their permissions, right? So it's different. So planning and scoping, that's what you will do in the beginning. The reconnaissance phase, you need information about the target. You need to know more information about the target. So different tools. So you just for more details, just for you to get more details about your target. So you use different tools. And then scanning phase, we are identifying live host, like what we did last time when we were using the Nmap, when we were trying to identify the available host or the live host that were part of that subnet. So I'm not here, today I'm focusing on this part, but I just wanted to let you know that once, you, okay, I think I'm disconnected on one of my sessions there. Let me just quickly do that, switch it on. Why am I disconnected? It says I am disconnected, that side. I don't know why am I disconnected. Okay, so I am streaming this on TikTok, I'm streaming this on YouTube, and then here on Teams. Okay, one got kicked out. Okay, Okay, it's fine. I'll come back to that. All right. So these are the steps that you will take when it comes to conducting your pen testing, which is your cybersecurity test. You want to test the strength of a system, of an infrastructure to see, maybe let's say APSA contracted you to conduct a test on their systems, FNB contracted you to do that. So you'll go through different steps. And then at the end, you notice that we have the reporting. The difference between an ethical hacker and a threat actor, or a what you call threat actor. So is that when it comes to ethical hacking, you need to report to the person or to the organization that contracted you to conduct that test. But when you're a threat actor, when you are not authorized to conduct a test, you don't report to anyone because no one gave you that task to conduct a test on their system or to look for whatever you're looking for in their system. So that's the difference between the ethical hacker and the threat actor. All right, I want to go to my, I want to do a demo. I want to go back to that part of the demo. Okay, let me, instead of starting with the demo, let me start with this. Let's see. Okay, this is the slide that we are focusing on this week. This is the slide, slide number 7. I will share this slide. I think you do have access to this slide already on Teams. All right, so what is cybersecurity? What is information security? So you will see what you call the CIA. So when it comes to cybersecurity, there is this term called the CIA. The C there stands for confidentiality. When it comes to information security, the whole practice or the whole idea is for us to control access to the data. That is in any format. So it's our responsibility to control access to data. So confidentiality, it means that that certain information should only be known to certain people. So it's your responsibility as a cybersecurity analyst, as a cybersecurity, what you call defender, to make sure that whatever you have within your organization, you protect its confidentiality. So there's going to be people within your organization, or we call them the owners of the data, owner of the data. Let's say, for example, I own a certain data within the organization. I'm going to be the one who tells you as a cybersecurity analyst to say, okay, this type of information needs to be known by a certain type of people. I'm sure when it comes to confidentiality, you have heard terms like, I think in the movies, they refer to the term like, what you call it, only need to know basis. So there's some data within your organization that would be labeled as what? Need to know basis, right? And then there are some other terms like your, what you call, classified information. In the military, they use the terms like classified information. It means there's confidentiality levels to this data. If it's classified, that means there's a certain group of people that need access to this information. If it's a need to know basis, you find that, okay, maybe you need to know this when you are doing a certain task within the organization. So confidentiality, it just means that certain information should only be known to certain people within the organization. So the overall part of cybersecurity is us protecting the confidentiality of information, right? So let me just quickly get more labels. I think you guys have heard of these terms, labels of confidentiality. So one of them I said to you, one of them that I said to you was need to know basis. Number 2 was classified information. What other terms that we have heard when it comes to when they refer to the confidentiality of information or labeling the data? What other terms? Let me see. I want to talk to people in. I want to talk to people on Teams there. Let me see. What other labels that we have seen referred to when it comes to cybersecurity? What other terms are referred to data? So we said number 1 is confidentiality. The data can be labeled as public information. When it comes to confidentiality or data on its own, the labels that we apply, it can be public. So if data is labeled as public information, it means that information is intended for general access, no restrictions to this data. All right. So we're starting with this part of confidentiality. So when we label data as public data, it means that information is intended for general access, no restrictions to this data. An example of a public information can be company website. Company website is designed for the public, is for people to know this information. So that type of data or that type of information is public information, right? And then when it comes to labels also, you will hear labels like called internal use only. So internal use only, this is the data for organizational use. So this is the data that can be used or need to be used by your organization. So it's not to be shared by external, it's not to be shared with external people. And then confidentiality, that's what we're talking about now, which is confidentiality. This is sensitive data. It can be restricted to authorized personnel. So if we label it as confidential or classified, it means this data is supposed to be read or seen by a group of people. And then there's some that would be called highly confidential. This one is critical data within the organization. And then privileged, legal or contractual information. So you find that, okay, is protected by a certain privilege, right? Or certain roles or certain level within the organization. So information security, coming back to information security, we said it is just like a practice of controlling access to data, right? So we're controlling access to data. Number one that we have covered so far is confidentiality. What is that? Confidentiality, we say now, this is, that means that certain information should only be known by a group of people or certain people. It's not applied or it's not to be seen by everyone. Let me just draw there. So we're covering the confidentiality. What is that? And then the integrity. Now, when it comes to integrity part, it means that the data is stored and transferred as intended. Like no one has access to alter this data. For example, let's say now I'm making a call. I'm communicating with, let's say, Ria, right? I'm communicating with Ria. So when we talk about integrity, it means that my communication with Ria, with whatever channel that we're using to communicate, if we're saying we're maintaining the integrity of the data, it means that there's no man in the middle. There's no one in the middle who can alter our conversation and change that. So it means that the information that came, let's say, let me draw it down here. Integrity, we're talking about, this is me there, and then this is Ria, this side. So let's say this is our communication line. I am communicating with Ria. So my conversation with Ria, when it's coming from my side, this is me, this is what I have said to Ria. Then when it gets this side, it needs to get this side without being altered, without being changed. So that's integrity. Integrity just means that the data, it moved from this part to the other part without being altered. So we maintained the integrity of that data. So you'll notice that as we go deep into cybersecurity, we'll look at the measures or the controls that we can apply to protect the information that is moving from point A to point B. So integrity is maintaining the data that it can be data that is stored. It can be data that is in transit, that is moving from one point to another point. So there are controls to maintain or to protect data that is in storage. And then there are controls that we will look at that will protect the data in transit, moving from point A to point B. We're maintaining the integrity of the data. So it's your responsibility as a cybersecurity analyst to maintain this. And then for your Computer A+, you need to understand these terms, not only for Computer A+, for all your cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is dependent on these terms. Your confidentiality, what is that? Confidentiality, we say now, this is the process that we use. So we say confidentiality means that certain information should only be known by a group of people or certain people. And then integrity, it means that the data is stored and transferred as intended. No modification is, no unauthorized modification. That is integrity, all right? And then now, what is availability? So let me take this back to the website. Let's say we've built a website. This is advanced assessment website, or this is APSA website. So confidentiality here, this is public information. What we have on our FNP side is public information. So confidentiality, we're not really worried about this information because it's what? Information on a website. We're not really worried about information on a website because it is public information. So we are not really worried because it needs to be seen by many people. But what about integrity here when it comes to the information on our website? So integrity, we really need to make sure that no unauthorized access is provided to the source code, because if an unauthorized personnel gain access to the source code, they can alter the information that we have on our website here. So even though this information is public, but integrity has to be maintained. integrity in this website needs to be maintained. So we'll look at the tools. How then do we maintain integrity of the data in a website? All right, so let's look at the different types of what is it that a threat actor can do to the data in a website. We're saying, like, for example, if you are FNB, someone can go to our website, to FNB website, and then change or alter information. For example, they say, if you need 1, 2, 3, you can get it on a specific site. So they can commit fraud, they can do whatever they want once they have access to our website, because people trust this FNB website. Any communication coming from this, our client trusts that. So that means now integrity, information, data stored here, we need to make sure that it is protected. Even though it's public information, which means that it can be accessed by anyone. But the integrity, if the integrity is contaminated, it has like a huge impact on our organization. So that's your role as a cybersecurity analyst or cybersecurity engineer. We're looking at the owner of the data will label our data, tell us, okay, this is public, or this is classified information, or this is like, need to know basis. Like, they will classify the data, and then as the cybersecurity analyst or the what you call systems administrators, we will apply the correct controls to this data. So this is public information on the website, but integrity needs to be maintained. All right, and then availability. So now, what impact will it have on us as an organization if this server or if this data is made unavailable for our customers, right? So as a cybersecurity analyst or as a cyber, as a system engineer, it's your responsibility to make sure that you implement controls that will make sure that if there is any downtime on any of your servers, there's load balancing, there is what you call redundancy. So you implement different controls to make sure that the data is always available. So all of our training or all of our what we're going to be doing as a cybersecurity engineers is surrounded the CIA. The CIA tried. We call it the CIA tried. So the C stands for your confidentiality. Yes, it's a website. It's supposed to be public. So the information on the website is not private. It's public information. Anyone can access that. What controls do we apply? We make it available to the public. Integrity. We need to maintain the integrity of this data. We don't want people altering. We don't want unauthorized personnel accessing our data and then making changes to that. And then availability. Systems like your companies, like your e-commerce companies, right? Like your Take a Load, like your Shein, like their website, if the website is not available for 10 minutes, there's a huge impact on their production. There's a huge impact if any attacker manages to take their system down within 10 minutes. You find that Shein loses a lot of money there. If you look at Amazon, they lose millions if the system is down for 10 minutes or 20 minutes because of the activity that happens within their website. So you as a system administrator, as a technician, as a cybersecurity analyst, it is your responsibility to protect this data, the availability of the data. So all these three, confidentiality, integrity, availability, there are controls, there are layers that we need to learn after that. When we talk about availability, how can we make this system available, let's say 99.9% all the time, right? Integrity, how do we maintain the integrity of this data? Right. So that is what we are focusing on today, which is the confidentiality. We're focusing on information security, but everything will be surrounding the confidentiality, integrity, and also your availability. So now we understand those terms. So for there's going to be questions on A+ surrounding that question. What is confidentiality? What is the CIA? What does it stand for? So availability means that information is accessible to those authorized to view or modify information. Okay, one more thing that I forgot about availability. Availability, you need to make sure that this information is only available to people that really need to use this information, to people that have permission to access this. So even though you are controlling or you are trying to block unauthorized personnel from accessing this data, you must have ways of making it easy for the people within the organization to easily access this information, but making it difficult for the unauthorized personnel to access this information. So you can see now the trick there, where it is you are trying by all means to make sure that authorized people within your company can have access to this information. It's available to them all the time, authorized people, but also making sure that unauthorized personnel from outside your organization, you're blocking them from gaining access to that information. So you need to find the balance between that. Because if you make some of the things, like some of the systems, to be difficult to be accessed by internal people, internal users can find ways of bypassing your controls. We have seen that a lot, where someone will find a way of bypassing your controls because it's difficult for them to find or to access or to use the systems within the organization. So you need to find a balance there on availability. You want to grant access to the authorized people and then block access to unauthorized people. So find a balance of controlling that. Like, that's the part that I'd forgotten to mention there, that you are controlling that. Okay, one more thing is then you will also come across the term cybersecurity. So where information security relates to ensuring that, so information security on our side, it relates to ensuring that data is stored and processed with CIA attributes in electronics, like is protected, right? And then cybersecurity now, you are making sure that there are these policies, there are these controls in place. Like there's a term that we use to protect like your end devices. End devices, we are talking about your PC. Let me just draw that. So you need to make sure that you harden the PC. Let's say this is a user laptop. So we spoke about availability, access, granting access to authorized people. So one of the things when it comes to cyber security, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you harden your system. There's a term called hardening, system hardening, right? It's a responsibility. System hardening, it means that you are going to apply different controls. You are going to apply, let's say, for example, what you call this, multi-factor authentication. You're going to apply policies within the system. You're going to apply firewalls. There are firewalls there. There's different controls that you have applied on the system to make sure even the ports that the system is not using or that you're not using with the organization, you block those ports. Some companies will block also the USB slots. So that's the term called host hardening. It's called host hardening. So host hardening is just like the process of you trying to make sure that the systems within your network, they are highly protected from unauthorized users. Okay, so that is cybersecurity. It's us looking or finding ways to implement controls that protect these systems within our organization. So we control them using different security policies that we can implement as an organization. All right. Now, there are other terms that security assess, okay, cybersecurity, we know what is cybersecurity now, is just us implementing different controls within the organization to make sure that we protect our systems. So, all right. So now, security assessment. So security assessment, the minute we implement security assessment, the minute we say, okay, we have this infrastructure, we need to assess that environment. We need to check how secure are we? What are the vulnerabilities that we have within the organization? So, okay, now there's a new word coming in now, vulnerabilities. What is a vulnerability? Let me just try to illustrate that, or just give an analog about this part here. So let me see if I can draw. So these terms, you need to know these terms for your security plus, not security plus, for your A plus. Let me say draw there. Okay, so for example, let me use a simple, a simple analog of an egg. Here we have, let's say we have an egg here, and then this is an egg can be an asset for an organization. Let's say we are into farming, right? This is our asset. So if this is our asset now, that means as an organization, this is where our money is coming from, right? We are making money out of these selling eggs. This is our asset. It's very important to the organization. And then look at here now. Let's say maybe we have, okay, this is this is a shell. So there is a shell, the egg here, there's a shell. And then maybe at the top here, I want to put a thread. I want to illustrate a thread, right? I want to bring in a thread. You can see here at the bottom, they're talking about a thread there. So at the bottom here of these eggs, there is a metal, right? A metal, maybe let's say weighing 50 kg or even a kg there. And then here, this is an egg, right? So the term that we're trying to break down is this one here called vulnerability. What is a vulnerability when it comes to cybersecurity? What is a vulnerability when it comes to cybersecurity? So here we have an egg, which is an asset for this organization. And then at the top there, we have a thread. Why do we call this a thread? Why do we call it a thread? It's right on top of the egg. So this is a heavy metal. It's on top of our asset. So as an organization, we need to protect our asset. So this is our asset. And then this asset has a vulnerability. What is a vulnerability here? The shell of an egg is way too weak, right? The weakness on the shell is a vulnerability. It means that if this thread, this metal at the top here, it becomes this metal at the top here, it becomes a threat to our asset, because the minute this thing falls on our asset here, the shell is not strong enough to hold the weight of this metal. So it means that now the shell is what? The shell is weak. That's a vulnerability on our asset. That's a vulnerability. So when we're talking about security assessment, it is your responsibility as a cybersecurity analyst, cybersecurity engineer, or system administrator to assess the vulnerability of your infrastructure. So this is our asset. We have identified that the shell is way too weak, right? So a vulnerability is any exposure. So vulnerability is a weakness that could be accidentally triggered or intentionally exploited to cause a security breach. So this is a vulnerability. The weakness of the shell is a vulnerability to our asset. The minute this is a threat, because the minute it falls on our asset, it damages our asset. So now bringing it back to an infrastructure, to an organizational infrastructure. So you find that we have our laptops, we have our switches, we have our routers. So all of those switches, they can have a vulnerability. A switch can have a vulnerability. A vulnerability can be maybe a port that is not closed. A port that is not closed on our switch or on any of our servers or in our system, unnecessary port that is closed. For example, port 21 or port 22, especially port the FTP port, which is unsecure. So that can be a vulnerability to an organization. So just to illustrate this, an egg is an asset to this organization, and then the shell is the weakness. So when it brings here, a vulnerability we're saying now is a weakness that could be exploited by a threat actor. So a vulnerability is any weakness within our system that can be exploited by a threat actor. So we have identified, we said the egg is the asset, and then the shell is what? Is the weakness or is the vulnerability that can be exploited by this threat of that we can see at the top there, right? So that's even at home. At home we can have, let's say this is our house. This is our house there. Let's say here we have a door, and then the door is a glass door. It's a glass door. And then there's no wall or any fence here protecting our house. And then it's close to the street here. And then maybe we're living in a, let's say, in a area where there's high crime, right? So check here, if your door is made of glass, and then it's not those tempered glasses, it's just like the weak glass. So this door now, because the house is our asset, there is valuables inside this house. So there's valuables inside the house. So a threat can be a burglar. A threat can be a burglar, can be someone, a thief, right? That's a threat. And then a vulnerability here is our glass door in our house. And then our asset is the house, and then everything that's within our house. So this can be a threat, and then vulnerability is the class that we're using. So now you need to assess security assessments. Assessment will be you as a network engineer, as a system administrator, assessing the vulnerability within or your infrastructure, looking at this. What can I do to protect myself from this threat? I've identified that there's a threat here. There is high crime in my area now. So we have a glass door. That means we need to change this glass door here, get a different door, get a burglar, put something else there, or put a fence. This is you now implementing controls to protect your asset. So that is cybersecurity there, us going through all those steps, identifying the threats that are like the threats within the organization, identifying the vulnerabilities, and then coming up with controls and policies that can protect our organization. All right. And then there's the mates here that you need to understand. So we do have these mates whereby we look at the vulnerability. We say, okay, what's the vulnerability? And then what's the threat? What's the chances of this thing happening? We look at all of those things whereby the likelihood of this thing happening. So for example, when it comes to the likelihood, the impact plus times the likelihood. So we look at this thing. We look at this way. If I'm an organization that is selling oranges, and then there's another organization that is selling gold. So there's an organization that is selling gold. They say this is their premises here. They're selling gold. And then my organization here at the bottom, we are just selling oranges there. So it happens that, okay, here, this organization, they might have a glass door, right? Which is very weak. And also us here, we have a glass door, right? But we are selling oranges. These guys here, they're dealing with jewelry, high valuable goods here. So when looking at these, what are the chances of an attack happening to this organization versus this one? So the value of asset, right? Here, this organization is selling gold jewelry. So it's attractive, right? For a hacker will spend more time trying to gain access to these. They can invest their time, they can invest their money into trying to hack into this valuable organization because they're selling jewelries. They have gold, they have all these different minerals in these premises. But here, I'm just selling my oranges and all of those things. So you find that I'm not really attractive to the hackers. Yes, I need to protect my organization, but the chances of this thing happening on my organization, they are very low compared to this organization. These guys, they can't have a glass door untempered and then just like a weakness. That's a vulnerability there. On my side, I can survive in an area with just like maybe selling oranges in my premises because the asset, the value there is different from that side. So those are the other things that you look at that when you are implementing the controls or protecting your organization. What is this organization dealing with? It's a banking, if it's a banking sector, we need to implement these heavy controls, these expensive systems, bring in these expensive systems. But if it's just like a company that is selling oranges, yes, we need to also protect ourselves. Definitely, 100%. I'm not taking that away, but I'm saying the chances of a attack happening in this organization here within a year, you can have like maybe 15 or 20 attacks. And then here on this orange company here, the one that's selling oranges, you find that the chances of us being hacked, you find that maybe it's one maybe in 3 years. You find so there is going to be like different controls that we apply within these particular systems or this infrastructure. So there are terms, the likelihood, the chances of something, and then the impact. So if you steal my oranges, what's the impact? If you steal all the jewelry within my organization, what's the impact there, right? So we will look deep into these mates. At least now we understand the terms. We understand what is the vulnerability. We understand the asset value. Ease of exploit. Ease of exploit, we're just looking at, you find that because this is just only a class, a hacker can easily gain access to this system because of what? It's only a class there. So ease of access, threat, internal, we talk about internal and external threats. So what is an internal threat? An internal threat can be users within your organization, someone going rogue. Internal threat can be someone who has been promised money by another organization, a competitor on the side, where they say, okay, if you steal so-and-so information from this company, I'll give you 100 million or I'll give you this amount of money. We have seen this happen in real world. At Tesla, there is one of the guys that was an employee of Tesla was approached by another organization. They wanted information about Tesla, like proprietary information about Tesla as an organization. That employee went back to Tesla and told them, okay, I was approached by a so-and-so company. This is what they promised me. So if that person went along with that, they could have lost information. So internal threats, it can be users that have access to your, access to your resources, access to different resources within your organization. That's an internal threat. And then an internal threat, it can cause more damage than external threat because Internal threat is someone who's already within the organization. They have access to different resources within the organization. So internal threat can also be, we fired someone within your organization, and then maybe you forgot to remove their access to some of the resources. So because they are still angry at the organization, they start now sharing sensitive information with other organizations. That's an internal threat, right? Someone within the organization that have full access to different resources, that can be an internal threat. And then external threat, this is like your outsiders, right? Coming from outside, they spend time looking for ways to gain access to your network. They have this, it can be a script kiddie, someone who doesn't have much knowledge about hacking, they're just using existing tools. It can be a big organization, depending on what you are selling again, depending on what you have as an asset, as an organization, right? And then we will talk about malicious, accidental. Some of the things can be accidental, whereby someone deletes something by mistake, or someone exposes something by mistake. Something can be intentional, right? A threat actor, so a threat actor can be someone who's not authorized to gain access to your resources coming from the outside. That's a threat actor. Some people refer to this as a hacker. So you have a hacker or a threat actor. And then an attack vector. An attack vector is a method or a way we gain access to your system, or we implement this attack. For example, an attack vector, for example, let's say we have identified a vulnerability, which is what a glass door. And then now, how do we take advantage of that vulnerability? The method that we use to take advantage of that vulnerability or to gain access to that system, that's an attack vector. That's a method of us. Maybe let's say I'm using a hammer or I'm using whatever to break or bang this door down. Then that's an attack vector, a method that I use to gain access to that system. That's an attack vector, right? So we're going to dive deep into these terms, but I just wanted to go through this basic within these slides. I just want any questions now. But I see doctors were they saying internal threats make use of security hardware within the organization. So yes, the internal threats is just that it's someone who's already have access to the organizational resources. So they're taking advantage of that access and then they take the information. All right, I see Keswa is saying oranges are just asset of low value, attracting very less trades, right? So yes, those are the things that we are looking at there. Potoko says, are there any notification when someone tries to hack into your system? Yes, remember here, Potoko, we spoke about these levels: confidentiality, integrity, availability. So integrity, if someone tries to alter your system or alter data, there should be systems in place to notify you as an administrator. For example, we have IDS. IDS, Potoko is one of those. It's called intrusion detection system. It's designed to detect any intrusion to your network. We also have like your IPS intrusion prevention system. We have firewalls. We have different tools that we're going to look at to make sure that we protect our systems. All right. Any questions here on the first slide before I move on? Yeah, your battery's died. For charging. All right. Any questions here on Teams? I see I'm seeing questions and contributions on TikTok. All right. Okay, so here what we were focusing on is these terms: confidentiality. Okay, let me just come back to TikTok. Okay, I'm getting feedback on TikTok. Teams, are we following? Do we understand these terms now? The confidentiality, integrity, availability. Do we understand the terms? All right, I'm seeing Tammy saying, okay, you understand, thumbs up. So Amahle is saying, without system IP address, is it possible to be an easy target? Yes, I'm at 100%. It is possible to be a target. So there are so many vectors or so many attacks that can be done to your network. Even though without the IP address, they can use other elements to gain access to you. For example, someone can send a link to via email address, send a link. I don't have your IP address, but maybe I only have your email address. Then I send a link that has like a, what you call, that redirects you to somewhere else, or that allows me to gain access to your system remotely. So yes, without an IP address, we can also gain access to your systems. So there are so many methods that we're going to look at when it comes to that. All right. Okay, we spoke about vulnerability. We said is a weakness that could be accidentally triggered or intentionally exploited to cause security breach. And then the risk, now what is the risk? You will hear this term called risk, right? Risk equals to risk. So the risk, and again, one of the terms that we're going to talk about later on is the risk appetite. So risk is the chance, the likelihood of something happening, and then its impact. So with an analog that we gave of a jewelry store, so we said there's a glass door there. The risk is that we have a vulnerability there. The risk is that is the likelihood. What's the chance of this thing happening? What's the chance of someone breaking in? The chances of someone breaking in into the store, they are very high because of the asset value. Because of the asset value, right? Risk, asset value there. We are dealing with jewelry. We have gold, diamonds, and all of those things in there. And then what's the impact? If someone gains access to this store, what is the impact? The impact, once they gain access, they are stealing, they'll be able to steal high valuable asset within our organization. So that means now it will be, we will lose a lot of money. So when it comes to risk or analyzing risk, we look at the impact. Once the person gains access into our store, our jewelry store, what's the impact? Once they steal everything, ooh, the company will lose so much, right? And then what's the chances of this happening? If we're dealing with a class here and then it's jewelry, the chances are very high. This is a high valuable store, so the chances of this thing happening are very high. So the risk is the chance, is the likelihood and the impact of a threat actor exercising a vulnerability. So here, the risk is very high. We looked at the store, orange store, we said the risk is very low. The chances of this thing happening, someone gaining access to stealing oranges, no one wants to go to jail for stealing oranges, right? So the chances of this person coming in and hacking or gaining access to our system and stealing stuff there, so you find that the likelihood is way too low, but the impact might be high. So the impact to our organization, if yes, someone steals all of our oranges, maybe that's our asset, right? That's what allows us to make money as an organization. If someone steals all of our oranges, the impact is too high on our side, right? So the impact is high, but the chances of this happening is low because no one wants to go to jail for stealing oranges. So, but the asset, when someone gains access to that, you find that it's very high. The impact is high on our side. So again, implementing controls or what you call focusing on this is dependent on the risk. What's the impact? What's the chances of this thing happening? So you can see here the impact on this part here is high, but the chances is low. So we have low chances of this thing happening on an orange store, and then the impact is high because of what? If they gain access there and then steal our oranges, we have no business at all. So you get the idea. So we're going to dive deep into this again. Someone, Keso, is saying, can we identify fake ransomware as threat actors? All right, there's a demo that I'm going to run here, Keswa, the one that allows us to identify different threats or different attacks to our organization. All right, that's slide number one. I think I have covered most of the things here on slide number one, which is the risk. What are you looking for, Papi? On the remote, I don't know where the remote is. Okay. All right, so vulnerability, we have explained what a vulnerability is. So now vulnerabilities, let's expand more on vulnerabilities. what are vulnerabilities now? On this part, what makes a system to be vulnerable? What makes your laptop to be vulnerable? So a non-compliant system, it can be it's non-compliant because maybe you have seen that most of the organization now, when you log into your, maybe let's say your Microsoft Office 365 account, there is what we call the multi-factor authentication, right? So maybe there's a policy which states that when you're logging into a system, you need to have like multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication, it just means that you need to have something that you know, and something that you have, something that you are. So we are creating like at least 2 out-of-band ways of connecting to this system. So if we're saying a system is non-compliant, it means that certain policies that we've implemented or that we've specified that needs to be followed within an organization they are not followed, which leaves your system to be vulnerable. So vulnerabilities can come from a system. Let's say maybe you didn't patch your system, non-compliant system. There are patches that need to be applied. What are patches? I think we looked at the patches last time on lesson number 3, where we said we need to update your system. And then we have what we call the configuration baselines. A configuration baseline. Right, if you're not asking questions, you can mute yourself there. All right. Okay, so non-compliant systems. So as we spoke about policies. Okay, let me just do this. All right. All right, let's come back to this. We were looking at non-compliant systems. What can make a system to be non-compliant? We're talking about that. We said that a non-compliant system, it can be a system that is drifted from its hardened configurations. So if it's non-compliant, we said, come on, where is that? I want to draw. Let's say draw that. Okay, and we have what we call the configuration baselines. So there's a demo also for configuration baseline. When we deal with computers within our networks, what we do is we have a baseline. A baseline is guidelines or rules that we have put in place to say, okay, if you are to create or to implement or to configure any system, these are the steps that need to be followed. You need to block USBs. Some companies will say you can't use any USB. If you plug in any USB on your laptop, you find that it doesn't respond. And then some other policies can be, we spoke about multi-factor authentication. So when we're saying a system is non-compliant, it means that now we have a system that is allowing USB to be plugged in. We have a system that allows people to log in without the multi-factor authentication. So it's outside the baseline. It has drifted from the original baseline, the guidelines that we have specified, which leaves the system to be vulnerable, right? It means it leaves a weakness. There is a weakness. What do we mean by a weakness of a USB slot? Someone can come in with a USB that has a virus, and then they plug it in here on our company laptop, and then it affects this system. Most companies now, if you go to them, companies, you find that their laptops are blocked from using the USBs. So the process of hardening, or the term hardening, is us applying these controls to make sure that the system is more secure. So these are the terms that you're going to hear. Hardening is making sure that you apply controls to the system so that it becomes more secure. Any unnecessary ports, any unused system, any unused things or protocols, anything, you block it, you leave only necessary ports. And then the configuration baseline, it's a guideline or steps that needs to be followed to configure a system. If a system is non-compliant, it means that it is drifted from the current way of that, the current state. And then vulnerability scanning. We also have ways of scanning vulnerabilities within our network. So we can scan to find out, okay, is this laptop still following this, following the what you call the baseline? And then some companies have what you call the jailbreak. There's a term there's a system that we use every time when you connect to a network. Before your system start accessing other resources, it gets scanned first. Scan your system. If the system or the scanner finds out that, okay, there is one policy that your system is no longer following, or there's a vulnerability within your system, it puts it in something called a jail, what you call VLAN jail, like something where it puts it in a place where it doesn't interact with other systems within your network. So it isolates it. So if you find any vulnerability, so it gets scanned every time when you connect to a network, it gets scanned. And then if it finds that, okay, there is any vulnerability within that system, it puts it in isolation, isolate it, and then update that particular vulnerability that needs to be updated, or notify the administrator. If it needs to be done manually, then the administrator will do that manually. So vulnerability scan, some systems, as I said, that before you connect to a network, before you become part of the access other resources, it gets scanned first to find out, did you drift away from the original state, from the baseline, from the benchmark, right? And then unprotected systems. Unprotected systems can be a misconfigured antivirus, a misconfigured firewall, security controls or firewall that allow outbound communication to gain access to your systems. That can leave your system vulnerable. And then missing or configured antivirus, if there's no any antivirus which is protecting your system, any virus can attack that system because there's no level of protection within your system. So that needs to be protected. You need to have an antivirus within your system. And then software and zero-day vulnerabilities. A zero-day vulnerability is a vulnerability that is not known by most of the people out there. So it's one of those vulnerabilities that, let's say you are a security researcher, you are researching on a Microsoft system like a Microsoft Windows 10 or Windows 11, and then you find a vulnerability, and then that vulnerability, no one knows about that vulnerability. That's one of the most dangerous vulnerabilities. We have seen some of the states, some of the organizations, or some of the companies whereby, not companies, but like your states, like the USA, the Russia, the Korea, when they find a vulnerability within a system, they don't report that vulnerability. They keep the vulnerability to themselves so that when a time comes where they need to use that vulnerability, because it's a zero-day vulnerability, no one knows about that vulnerability. It's not published on the CVE. The CVE is a database where most common vulnerabilities are kept. So if you find any vulnerability, you report it, and then it goes to the common vulnerability exposure where most of the people know about it. So a zero-day vulnerability, it's a new vulnerability that you just identified, that you just found out, and then some good people, ethical hackers, they will report that. But unethical hackers, unethical people, they will just keep that to themselves so that when time comes, they can utilize that attack. So it's one of the dangerous vulnerabilities because it's not known by anyone, or only known by the person who discovered it at that point in time. But the rule is that once you find any vulnerability, you report it to the CVEs. They share that under the CVE databases so everyone can have access to that. All right. And then we have unpaged and end of life. Unpaged system is a unpaged system. So we find vulnerabilities within system. Microsoft can identify a vulnerability within their operating system. So, and then they will go ahead and release a patch to protect against that vulnerability. They release a patch to cover that. They cover that vulnerability within the operating system. But you as an administrator, if you don't patch that system using the released patch, then a hacker can utilize that mistake and then gain access to the system, right? So that's an unpatched system. And then end of life, for example, right now, Microsoft announced that Windows 10 is coming to end of life. It's reaching end of life. I think it's in October. So that means after that, Microsoft doesn't care about Windows 10. They don't release patches. They don't release updates on Windows 10. So you are on your own. If as an organization, you are using an end-of-life system, it means that you are no longer protected by Microsoft. You are on your own. So that on a production environment, a system, an operating system that has reached end of life, it's not allowed. We don't need that on our production environment. You need to update to the current, to the latest one that is supported by the manufacturer. So end of life, it leaves the system vulnerable. It leaves your system vulnerable. If it has reached end of life and then you're using it in a production environment, it leaves your system vulnerable. And then, okay, bring your own device. So bring your own device vulnerabilities. This comes to, it speaks to where people within the organization, they are bringing their own devices. So for example, a company can say, you bring your own laptop, you bring your own phone to do your company work, whatever you're doing, like you're doing it on your personal laptop. The vulnerability that comes with that, or the risk that comes with that, is that as IT department, we don't have full control of that particular device. So we don't have that, we don't have control. So we can't really tell you, okay, you can't install this application on your device. You can't do 1, 2, 3 on your device because you own that particular device. So bring your own device. It's just a concept that we use in companies whereby a user uses their own personal device to work or to do company tasks. So as an IT department, we don't really have full control of that. So we have different terms. We have bring your own device, and then we have the company-owned device. It's called the CO, company-owned device. That means we give you a company-owned device so that you can do your work using the company-owned device. So as the IT department, we have full control of this device. We can tell you what you need to do there. We can delete stuff as we want, like whatever we want to do within that device, we can do that. And then there are other concepts called the COP. It's called company-owned device, personally enabled. So the company gives you a device, but you can also use it for personal use. So as the IT department, we have full control of this one because it's company-owned, even though they allow you to use it for personal use. And then this CO is company-owned. You can't use this device for personal stuff. It's for company purposes only. All right? There are other terms. Any other term that I'm leaving out? I know, when it comes to IT, they keep on updating. There's always these new terms. So I mentioned bring your own device. So bring your own device, it introduces vulnerability within our infrastructure because we don't have full control of that. But these ones, the company-owned, personally enabled, we have full control of this. Company-owned, we have full control of that. So there are another term. I feel like I'm missing one or two. I don't know. I forgot them. All right. If there's anyone who remembers anything there, you can share that. All right. So these are, we talk about vulnerabilities. What can be identified as a vulnerability within your organization? We said non-compliant systems. We explained what is a non-compliant system. What does that mean? Unprotected systems. So unprotected system, they don't have firewalls. They don't have antivirus. They don't have, they are misconfigured. So a misconfigured device or a missing configuration on a device, you can find that a router within the corporate environment, someone didn't change the default password and default username. So the system is still using admin and then password admin. It's using username admin, password admin. Right? So, all right. So those are things that can make your system to be vulnerable, right? That can cause your system to be vulnerable. So unprotected system, we said there's a baseline. Okay, we spoke about what a baseline is. And then software zero-day vulnerability, we spoke about what is a zero-day. Okay, let me see what else. Unpaged and end of life, bring your own device. Okay. All right, now we have this, one of the most used way of gaining unauthorized access to company resources or company infrastructure, which is called social engineering. So a social engineering is an art of manipulating users to giving you sensitive information. So we have seen this a lot in scenarios whereby we are impersonating someone. So pretexting is whereby you are coming up with a trick to trick someone to give you sensitive information. For example, the popular one is where I call in a user from let's say a bank. I'm calling them as if I am an IT personnel who works for that company. And then I'm asking them to give me some sensitive information. I put like an element of sense of urgency, whereby I'm telling you, hey, you need to give me this particular information or else the system will be done. So a user would be thinking, okay, this information now it's needed. And then number two, there's urgency. And then also there is, we can cause the system downtime. So someone will release the information based on that. So social engineering is just an art of manipulating a user to give you sensitive information without them really picking up that they are giving you that information. Another popular one is whereby these we have seen these tricks a lot where someone calls people and then they're acting as if they're working for a bank. They're asking them for the bank card information. They say, okay, there is someone who's trying to carry out a fraud on your account. You need to do this fast. The minute you hear that someone's trying to steal your 20 million or your 30,000, and then now the fraud department is calling you to kind of like help you. So there's an urgency, and then there's so much to lose at that point in time. So you don't have time to think about this. You try by all means to be of assistance to this person, to give them as much information as they need so that they can help you out. So you can see they are just taking advantage of the trust, and then they're using agency, they're using that thing, okay, you need to protect yourself now. So that is social engineering. Sometimes we can impersonate a bank, sometimes we can impersonate someone. So we have seen many of these days, which is one of those that usually are successful because we're taking advantage of human beings, right? We're not really going through the systems. We're taking advantage of them. What you call ignorance of people, if I can put it that way. So pre-testing is just you coming up with ideas, putting together an ad to kind of like get information from these users. All right, and then gain physical or network access. Then impersonation. How can you gain physical access to an organization by impersonating someone? So we have seen this also in movies whereby someone will impersonate like a repairs company. They are coming in as if like, okay, this week there is a repair that is due. They are wearing the full gear of a particular company to acting as if they are coming in to repair your system. So they're impersonating another person or another company that is usually coming in for plumbing or coming in to do something. So they can impersonate someone else. They have the card. They've even went ahead to create this card and then get information to your system. All right. And then gain physical access, network access, and pre-testing, and then dumpster diving. So dumpster diving is a way of me. Let's say I need to know, like this is the part of reconnaissance phase. You want to get much information as you can. Dumpster diving, some organization, what they do is with the information, let's say information on a paper, what you do with that data in a paper, some people just throw it away into the bin. So so a dumpster diving is me going to the bin, let's say on Thursday in an organization, this is when you throw away trash. So you throw away trash on Thursdays. So I come through to your organization. The minute you put the bins outside, those trash cans, when they're outside of the organization, they're no longer the data or the things inside that bin, they no longer belong to that organization anymore. That's anyone's territory. I can get to that bin and then collect all the papers. And then when I get to my place, or then I start putting together those pieces. Some people will tear those pieces apart or shred those pieces, those papers, but I can put together those papers again, put them together nicely, and then I should be able to read information that's there. So that's another reconnaissance phase whereby I'm gathering information. So dumpster diving is just obtaining information to develop attacks. So for example, what type of information can I collect via dumpster diving? So I can get a paper that is maybe a list of emails. So within your organization, maybe I didn't know the email addresses or the people that are part of that organization. Within dumpster diving, I can get a paper that have email addresses. Some of the guys within the organization, they write their passwords on the paper. Some of the passwords and email addresses are on a paper. So you find that paper within a bin, that becomes a jackpot now. Dumpster diving, I can use that email address and the password, easily gaining access to the organization. I've seen organizations whereby people put the passwords on a wall in a paper written down, and then you have the username and the password. So that is the power of dumpster diving. I can get information like that. I can get passwords. I can get email addresses. I can get like their client information. Maybe it was like an invoice coming from a client. I can get information, know now, okay, this company is doing business with so and so. Sometimes you find that it's difficult to attack an organization, but maybe their client or their third party, it's easy to attack them. So instead of going directly to FNB, I can attack their client and then gain access to what? To FNB via their client. Right? So you see like the ways of getting this information. And then the other attack is called the shoulder surfing. This one is popular. It's easy to do. Shoulder surfing is whereby when someone is typing in their password and then you're just passing behind them, you're checking out the password as they type. Right? That's shoulder surfing. And then also shoulder surfing can be done when someone is punching in their PIN on the safe, on their safe, and then maybe their PIN is 1234. You are behind them, you're checking out, and then that's shoulder surfing. You get the PIN. So shoulder surfing is just observe passwords and confidential information while the person is typing in that information on the system. Right? That is shoulder surfing. It's not difficult to understand. It's just you. Or sometimes shoulder surfing, they put it in a way of, like, let's say you are eavesdropping, right? Eavesdropping, listening to people talking about their passwords or something like that. But shoulder surfing is mostly on when someone is typing in their password. And also you can get password by eavesdropping, right? And then the other one is tailgating. So tailgating is whereby you are following someone when they're entering their premises, and then the boom gate opens for them, and then before it closes for them, you quickly go in. That is tailgating then. So tailgating, you are not authorized. You are gaining access to an organization without authorization. So the difference between piggybacking and tailgating is authorization. So you are gaining physical access to an organization without the authorization. So tailgating, it means that you are gaining, or you are entering a secure area without authorization. So let's say maybe it's an estate. The estate opens for someone else, and then before the boom gate closes, you are in. That's tailgating. So you are not given authorization. But when it comes to piggybacking now, piggybacking is similar to tailgating, but now piggybacking is you are authorized to gain access. The way we do the piggybacking is whereby, let's say now to enter any organization, maybe there's a card that needs to be used. So you don't have the card, you don't have the access card, right? So you go to that organization, you want to get in, you want to gain access to that organization, but you don't have the access card. So what happens is that what you will do is, some people, what they do is you walk into that area. Let's say maybe you're holding a box full of things inside, right? So you are acting as if like your hands are full. You're acting as if like you have a card with you, but the problem is that now you can't take out your card from the pocket because your hands, you're holding a box. So naturally, what happens with people is that someone wants to be nice, they will be nice, they will tap in for you and then allow you access to that building. Here's the thing, some companies are big enough that they don't know each other. Like you're working for a company where you've been working for 6 months, like some of the people in that organization, you don't really know them. It's just like seeing new faces all the time. So this person, like now trying to enter, you might be thinking that this is the same person, or this is maybe the person who's working for this organization. It's just that I don't know this person. But for small organizations, this type of attack might not be successful because everyone knows everyone within that organization. But big companies, we don't know everyone with that organization. You might think that maybe this is a new person or what works for a different department. So piggybacking is just you are taking advantage of humanity, of that people, that good side of people that, okay, you are carrying a box, the person will think, okay, no, man, let me help out this person. They might have a card in their pocket. It's just that they can't really reach out to that card and then gain access to this system. So what you are doing is you're taking advantage of that. They will tap in for you and then you go inside. That is piggybacking. You see, piggybacking, you have authorization. Someone authorized or granted you access to that particular organization. But tailgating, there was no authorization. You just like entered, like we followed someone behind, you just went in before the boom gate closed. Piggybacking is someone tapped in for you. Someone tapped in for you, they granted you access to this. All right, does the difference between the two make sense? Is that clear? the difference between your piggybacking and tailgating. I know CompTIA A+, they will ask you a lot of questions are surrounding those two. All right, I've been talking a lot. I know IT is all about, okay, there's a question. Does piggybacking also apply to using a neighbor's Wi-Fi without their authorization? Oh, we're going to get to that part for when you're getting access to someone. We have what you call, we have the type of attacks, but that's not piggybacking when you just accessing someone else's Wi-Fi from your, let's say you're accessing your neighbor's Wi-Fi, right? Okay. All right, I see some thumbs up there. We understand. I want to do a demo using Kali, just for us to have visualize this what we've been talking about. Let me see. Okay, let me go through this slide and then do a demo after this. So we have phishing attacks. The phishing attacks can be done in different ways. So the phishing is also uses social engineering techniques to make like your spoofed electronic communication. We always try by all means to make these look authentic. I'm sure you have seen whereby maybe an email address, an email that looks like it's coming from a bank, and then they're asking you to click a link on that, and then it will take you to their own site. So that is phishing. So phishing is where it's a social engineering technique where we use electronic communication that seem authentic to a victim. So it's a social engineering technique to make spoofed electronic communications seem authentic to a victim. So the example of an phishing attack can be whereby I send you an email that looks like it's coming from FNB, that comes from ABSA or your bank, and then we're telling you about maybe going to that site and then making some few changes for blah, blah, blah reasons. And then what you will do is, can you see here, that's another phishing attack, right? It might look like it's coming from your organization. So we have here Acme Corp and then another organization. It looks like it's coming from your, okay, let me show you the elements there. Let's say no. Okay, I'll bring in my phishing email. I'll show you the phishing emails now on the demo side. All right, so the phishing is just like someone sending an email that comes in with the banking link, and then they're redirecting you to their banking site, and then they just want you to type in your logging in details that you use for a banking site. That's the phishing attack. And then phishing attacks comes in different forms. We have what we call the spear phishing. The difference between these types of phishing attacks, is that the spear phishing occurs when the attacker has some information that makes the target more likely to be fooled or by the attack. For example, we spoke about what you call this, the dumpster diving. We said we collect those email addresses. So let's say you have collected email addresses by dumpster diving. Now you have email that you know, emails. So you have emails that you can send to and the names of those people via the dumpster diving that you collected via dumpster diving. So you email someone and then you have a link on that email or you want to redirect them somewhere else. The spear phishing is just that you have, is that there is a target. You are targeting a specific person that you know. You know this person either by the reconnaissance, you collected information via dumpster diving, you collected information via whatever method that you used. But the thing is that spear phishing is that this is someone that I have information about my target. So the threat actor might know the name of a document that is targeting. Let's say, for example, I want you to click a specific document. Maybe by that dumpster diving, I know that you're working on a project with Mduduzi. And then I know the name of the document. So I send you an email and then I say, please review this document. That is spear phishing. I have some bit of information about you. I'm targeting you because I have some information about you, right? That's the spear phishing. And then we have the whaling. So the whaling is one of those attacks where you are targeting the big fish. So the whaling, you are targeting the big fish within the organization. You are targeting the CEOs. So you're not just targeting the anyone. It's just like you are targeting the upper management. So the minute you see whaling, just know that these are big fishes within the organization. You are targeting the management. You're targeting the CEOs. You're targeting the C-level management, right? And then phishing is also a social engineering attack, but this one is conducted using voice channels. So this is done using voice channel. For an example, you could target someone purporting maybe to represent a bank. I think we spoke about this one. You're calling them, acting as if you're representing the bank, right? And then you want information, you want credit card information, you want to transact you want to get their money. So you're calling them using a phone. So it's voice channel. So the difference between these other ones is that phishing is done using the voice channel. So you can use VoIP, you can use a telephone to do these types of attack. All right. And then whaling, we're saying, is for big fishes. You are targeting the big guys. And then spear phishing is you have some information about the person that you are targeting. You know what they're working on. So you are using that information so that they can be able to click on that or act on whatever you want to work on because you have targeted this person. All right, now coming to the evil twin. What is an evil twin? So on the evil twin side these are access points. An access point, you want to collect user information. And then this information that I want to collect of the users, I want to collect it via an evil twin. So what I do with an evil twin is that I bring in my own access point, my wireless router, and then I can give that access point or that wireless router a name or an SSID that is similar to the one of an internet cafe. And then the key here is that I make that there's no password. I don't put a password on this one. So I don't put a password. I'm spoofing an access point. I'm mimicking an existing access point so that people can connect to my access point as an attacker, as if they are thinking that they're connecting to the internet cafe Wi-Fi, but they are connecting to me instead of connecting to the legitimate one. So when they connect to me, then I collect their information. So here's the thing. Anytime when you are using a Wi-Fi network that doesn't have a password, that says you don't have to type in any password, any form of password, it means that whatever information that you are transmitting there, it is on plain text, it can be read. So even if it's a free Wi-Fi, please give me a password so that there's an element of encryption to that conversation. But if I'm bringing in an evil twin, I don't want you to type in your password. I leave it with no password so that I can be able to read that conversation. When you go to the banking website, you're typing in their own FNP, you type in your username, type in your password. That is on clear text. I think there's a demo that we're going to run later on these sessions where we reading information that is being transmitted from one device to another device. So I can see Keswa there saying evil twin is the best, right? So evil twin is one of the best, like in terms of like collecting user information, sensitive information, so that you can use it later on for other things, right? Okay, I want to do a demo. Let me run a demo. The demo that I want to run is, let me see, bring in my Kali. Let me bring in my Kali. So for those that have the material that I shared with you, you can go to your PSN view or to your CompTIA platform and then use these labs. Which lab are we using? We are using the one that we used last time under Linux materials. So already you have the labs to run this demo. You can go to the same lab, the Linux one. All right, you can see my demo is kicking in there. So what I want to do is I want to try what we were doing last time. So last time we were busy with trying to, let me say Control C. All right, clear that. Last time what we were doing is we were trying to decrypt, to remotely. So we were on this Kali Linux trying to remotely connect to this Metasploitable. right? To find out we're doing what you call online password brute forcing. So today we want to do offline password brute forcing. But before I start with the John the Ripper, the tool that we're going to use today is John the Ripper. It's called John for offline password decryption. So it gets the hashed password and then you decrypt those passwords. So let me see if my demo will be able to run. Last time there were certain things that were not able to run, of which I was happy about that, because when you are conducting this, what you call the hacking part, not every time everything will run smoothly. There's going to be some glitches here and there. As I said, that some of the tools might not work, so you need more tools in place or more tools at your disposal. So for you to be able to, if tool number one is not working, you switch to another tool. All right. So the demo that we're trying to do now is what we want to do is let's say you have found a file that is the hashed password. So here's the thing. When we are storing passwords, systems that store passwords, they don't store passwords in plain text. So passwords are never stored in plain text. So here's the concept of hashing or encryption. Let me just try to bring it up. Let me see if I can get it from, what did I use last time? Let me say, is it bcrypt? Bcrypt. Let me say online encryption tools. Encryption and decryption. So when you type in your password on whatever platform that you type in your information in, your information is not stored in plain text. Your information is not stored in plain text. So it gets converted, it's getting encrypted, right? That's the term, which means that, for example, let's say here's my password. My password is, let's say I type in my password on a site, password is password 123. So the database or the system that keeps your password, it doesn't store that information as in plain text. It has to be encrypted. So we call this file or this password a string, right? So I want to encrypt this, meaning that I wanted to turn it into a different format where if someone needs to read that, they will need a key for them to be able to decrypt that information. So when you're typing in your password on a database, it's going to be converted into something else. We call it encryption, right? So let me encrypt this. Can you see I'm using the encryption, which is AES 128. This is the one. So on the database, now for whoever steals my database files, let's say my passwords on my database, if someone steals or hacker gains access to my files on my database with whatever method that they used, they will need my own key to be able to decrypt this information and be able to tell, okay, this, it means what it stands for, password 123. Because when you take this and then go to my website and then try to type this as a password, the system will reject it. So for you to be able to log into my website, you need to decrypt this, change it back into this. So if you only found this, how will you know then, okay, what does this mean? All right, what does this mean? So you need to know the key that was used to encrypt that information so that you can be able to decrypt it. We're going to talk about the private key, public keys, digital, what do you call these? We're going to talk about these terms, how we encrypt this information. All right, so you need that key there. All right, so now you know what is encrypted information. So this is what is encrypted here. So let me just do this. Let me just do this. Control C. Let me grab that and then let me delete it here. Let me delete what I have there. So here, let's say the hacker found this information. If they have my key, they only have the hash files, right? We call this the file, right? The hash file. So let me just do this, decrypt that. So you can see now, if you use the right key, you're able to decrypt that. You are able to get that information. So this is what we want to do. We want to go back to Kali Linux, this side, and then we say in Kali Linux, which file is used to store information in Kali Linux? sorry, which file is used in Kali Linux to store passwords? Hashed passwords. Which file in Linux is used to store hashed passwords? Okay, just for the sake of time. So we have called a file called so John the Ripper. We're going to use John the Ripper to decrypt that file. So here in Kali Linux, let's create a username. Let's create a user. Let's do this. Let's say user add. Let's say user add test. Let's say 01. So now we want to create a user, and then want to also this user want to give them an easy password. So user add test 01. So this is the username, right? So we're creating an account for a user. My system is slow there. Let me see if I can switch that other side online. All right, let me see if I can switch online. Where is that? Come on. Okay, still loading this side. Oh, it's done. Which one did I open? Oh, shucks, I opened the wrong file. Okay, we'll come back to this. Let me see if mine is done here. Okay, so it says I don't have permissions, so I need to say, so here I need to say sudo. Come on. Why is this slow? Okay, let me just say sudo. So sudo just means that I want to run this as an administrator. Test 01. So we're creating an account. And then what's the password for Kali? I put Kali, there's my password. All right. We have created an account for user test 01. So, okay, let's create another account for user test 02. This is test 02. Okay, we have an account for that test 02. And then we want to put a password, want to give them a password, want to assign a password for these. So I want to assign a password to this account, password test 01, and then password. I want to give it an easy password. So the reason why the system, sometimes they ask you to say, okay, you need to make sure that your password is a strong password. It means that when we try to decrypt that information, it takes the hackers more time for them to be able to decrypt that information, that password. It says you may not view or modify password information test. Okay, because I need to be sudo. Okay, sudo password test 01. Okay, new password. I want to make it easy. Let's say 123. 123. Password update successfully. Password is updated successfully. I want to give test 02 on assigned password. On a password, I want to say password 123. Password 123. Says what? Retype new password. Password do not match. Blah blah blah. Got it wrong somewhere. Password 123. Password 123. Password updated. So I want to check now if we were able to create these accounts. So I will go to, let's do sudo cat. Those that were in our last week's session, you remember these commands, right? So the file that has the encrypted passwords is shadow file in Linux. In a Windows machine, your password, you find them in a file called the SAM file, SAM file. So you can see this is an account that we created, test 02, where's test 01? There's test 01. And then the passwords are encrypted. You have encrypted passwords there. So what I want to do is I want to decrypt those passwords. So you can see now they're encrypted. I can't really tell. The other one, I know that the first one I made it password it was 123. The other one was password 123. So I want to use John the Ripper, which is a tool that will allow me to decrypt these passwords, all right? So I want to take this information, put it in a file. When I put it in a file, let's see if that will work. Let me say, I want to copy this. Let's say copy. Let's say copy the selected information. And then I want to say nano let's say, what file can we call it? Let's say session, this session dot txt. All right. So what I've copied here, the passwords that I've, this information that I copied here, I want to paste it in a file. So nano is a file editing command that allows me to edit files or add information into a file. So let's see if nano session.txt will be able to open for me. All right, I want to right click here, paste that information. So I've pasted the test1 information, test02 account information. I want to save that. First, I want to Control O, enter, Control X to exit. And then I want to display that information. I want to see if I was able to copy that information and paste it there. So I will say cat, let's say session.txt. So you can see that information is inside here now. So we have that information copied to this file. Now I want to bring in John the Ripper. I want to use John the Ripper. So the key here is that the stronger the, okay, before I bring in John the Ripper, other method that we wanted to use last time, okay, maybe not to confuse you, let me stick to this one first and then I'll bring the other one. So we want to work on this, all right? So now I want to bring in John the Ripper now. Okay, I want to bring in John the Ripper. So John, like you can see, not that. Okay. I thought I can type out. No, I can't. Control. Okay, let me just dash. I don't want to, I'm lazy to type. I wanted to use that information. So I just want that equals, wait a minute, what did I do? Let's say, what do I do? Not that. Okay, format. Format equals script dot. Okay, the name of the file. Now I need the name of the file. I saved it as what? Is it success or something? Or session.txt. Session.txt. So currently what we're doing here, we want to use John the Ripper. John the Ripper, last time we said if you're not sure what the command does, is you can use the what is, or you can use the, what was the other one? Man John, just to get more information. So dash here format equals crypt. We want to decrypt the encrypted information on this file. So there are two accounts that are encrypted within this file. I'm using John the Ripper. So it happens sometimes that maybe you come across a file that consists of encrypted passwords. So before you hack into this account or these systems, you need to decrypt the passwords to see them in plain text instead of encrypted format. Because encrypted format, you can't type it into a file or login file, it won't go through. So you need to decrypt it first and then have access to that. So let me run John the Ripper. So John the Ripper now will go through this. Again, it's dependent. You can see it says using default input encoding, loaded 2 passwords hashes with, okay, it's going through that. So it might take some time depending on how strong the passwords are, but I made them easy so that it can quickly go through that for us to see how it does this. So as we wait for that, I want to bring you back to this. So right now what we had this part, we have the encrypted passwords. We wanted to decrypt it, to see it in plain text. Because if you go to any login page and try to log in using this as a password, systems will reject that. They want the actual password. Type in the actual password, and then the system internally, it has a way of confirming this, comparing it with the internal hashed file. So if you use this is different. I want to show you something. Control C. This information, let me say Control X. I want to show you something. Control X, and then type it here. If this is your password, right? And then you press submit on any system when you're logging in, it will have its own hash file. It will have its own hash. Check here. Let me encrypt that. It will have its own. You see how it looks like. So it means that if you're typing this on a login in page, it doesn't mean that the system will recognize this as an existing password within the system. No, it will take that and then create its own, encrypt it with this information, and then say, sorry, I don't have this password here on my database. So this is the encryption. You can't use this to type it in on the login page to gain access to the system. You need to decrypt it first. This is what we're doing now. You can see it's taking time. I know in the movies it looks fast, right? They do, because they use these heavy systems. They use like these big systems with like higher specs. On my side, I'm just using my system here. And also the time frame to decrypt these is dependent on your hardware specs. So these days you have quantum computers. Quantum computers, you will notice that some of the passwords that we have, they are able to decrypt them at a faster pace. They're able to decrypt those because of quantum computers, which are way too fast. They can generate or decrypt information faster than what my system is going through right now. My system is way too slow. Okay, as we wait for this, I want to show you another demo. We'll come back to this. It still says only 20 candidates buffered for the SIP current sold. Finally, there is, check here, it finally managed to decrypt that password. Check here, test 01, I gave it a password of what? 123. So now it managed to decrypt that. So that's why I always advise that your password should be strong when it comes to when you're punching in your password, because it delays the times it takes the hacker to decrypt that information. Sometimes they might not be able to decrypt it because they don't have the enough equipment to decrypt that and be able to read that. But if you're using these easy targets like this, you can see now someone is saying which one is better, Hydra or John. So Hydra and John, they're doing two different things. John is an offline password cracker. Hydra is an online password cracker. So brute forcing we use, for online we use Hydra, for offline we can use John. So okay, I'll come back to this. But you get the idea there of what we're doing. Like, does it make sense? Is it clear there? The concept there of decrypting and encryption there, that your password is never stored in a clear text. It gets converted. And then when you are stealing these files as a hacker or ethical hacker, what you are looking for is encrypted information. So you will find only encrypted passwords. And then you now need to another step again to decrypt that. So cybersecurity is all about creating layers of security. If a hacker bypasses layer number one, they need to meet another layer again. For example, at home we have a fence, right? So some people stay in an estate. We have staying in an estate, there are security guards in an estate. That's security number one. That's security layer number one. And then when you find a way of bypassing the security at the estate, then you come to my apartment. My apartment, you have a butler. So the butler is a security layer number two. And then after you bypass my butler, there is a door. My door has its own lock. So you need to bypass that, right? And then maybe there are alarms, there are all of these security features that we have. So when we are dealing with organizations, we create these different layers of security that allows us to be able to protect our systems. So it's more of a deterrent, like especially let's say you have a dog at home. A dog, it might not necessarily stop an intruder from getting inside your house, but it works as an alarm, right? It notifies you that there's someone who's trying to gain access to your house. Or sometimes a dog can be a deterrent. It slows down an intruder. These bulldogs, like what you call these other dogs. Okay, we have different breeds, right? Like some of them are strong enough to stop the intruder. Some of them are just like those Boppy and all of those. They're just like barking and making noise. They're just like notifying you, okay, something's off outside. So within the network also, we have those layers. Some systems are intrusion detection systems. They're not blocking anyone necessarily. An IDS in a network, it doesn't block. it notifies. It just sends you a message to say, hey, there's someone who's trying to gain, there's like an office, there is someone who's trying to gain access to your system. As an administrator, then you act quickly. All right, you can see that other password is kind of like long. So John takes forever to decrypt that one. The other one is long. It's called password 123. So that's why we advise that people to make their password longer. All right. So and stronger. You mix the characters, right? Okay. Let me see. And then now we have this. Let me see my slide. I have one more attack that I want to do. I'm just waiting for John the Ripper there to finish them. What else do we have here? What else do I have? Bring back my slide. Where was I? Okay, we looked at these. And for CompTIA A+ exam, you need to understand these terms. For your A+, you need to understand the differences between the terminology that you're going to see. Spearfishing, what's the difference between spearfishing and whaling? Spearfishing is, we said, you are targeting a specific person that you have maybe prior information about them. So we have something at hand that you know about this person. Whaling is you are targeting the big fishes, right? The CEOs, the top management. Phishing is I'm targeting a group of people, but the difference is that I'm using telephonical conversation, or I'm using VoIP, I'm using voice channels to carry out this attack. Evil twin is a router that mimics the legitimate router. So I'm just using the evil twin to collect information when people are browsing the internet, going to these sensitive sites, and then I'm using the evil twin for that. All right. So I brought up this slide because now the attackers have taken this phishing attack or social engineering to a whole different new level altogether. So now the phishing, what they've done is phishing when it comes to AI, what they've done is we have voice cloning. So voice cloning deepfake audio mimics executives or loved ones. So with this one now, the deepfake is I can call a company and then change my voice to sound like a CEO. Let's say maybe I know the CEO of ABSA, right? We clone the voice of that person. Then we call the finance team and say, okay, please, this is urgent. Remember I said social engineering, it becomes successful because number one is there's an element of urgency. This thing has to be done quickly. Number two, social engineering becomes successful because of fear. So we instill fear on these people. And then number three, what's the other one? So there are 4 factors, if I'm not mistaken, that makes social engineering being successful. So now voice cloning, we use these AI tools to clone a CEO's voice. We're calling the finance department, please transfer this amount of money to that particular account. It's very urgent. We need to win this account. So you tell them, okay, we need to, this is a potential client. We need to win this account. We need to have this account on board. We need to have this client on board. So make sure that you transfer this amount of funds to them. If we don't do that, we're going to lose millions. So now these finance personnel, once they are hearing the actual voice of the CEO, they're thinking that they're talking to a CEO. Maybe we're using Teams or we're using something that they're familiar with that maybe the CEO usually calls using. And the voice matches that. They think this is the actual person. Now they can go ahead and transfer this. So now, how do we defend against this attack? Maybe this is my question for today. How do we defend against these types of attack? I think, let me expand also on this. We have seen this type of attack on WhatsApp. When someone like a friend of yours sends you a WhatsApp message and say, hey friend, I'm in trouble. Please transfer 1,000 Rand to me. Only to find out later that your friend is not the one that they texted you via WhatsApp to say, okay, they need 1,000 Rand. They don't even know about that conversation. But you've already transferred the amount, the $1,000 to someone else. How then do we defend against these types of attacks now? What would be another way of making sure that you don't fall victim to these attacks? We can look at the attack of the WhatsApp one, where a friend of you, is sending you a message, but it's not them, but the number is their number. We have seen this. There was one of the it happened last week or 2 weeks back, where 2 students, they got paid, and before they got paid, one of the students sent someone else, but it's not them who sent that. Their number was cloned. The WhatsApp number was cloned, and then the attacker sent a message asking for 1,000. When the guys came to class, the other one was asking, saying, "Okay, bro, I sent you like $1,000 last week. Where's my money now?" The other one was like, "I never asked you for money. Like, I didn't ask for money." He said, "No, you asked for money. Here's the thingy." And then we had proof that like that was cloned. So how do we then prevent against this type of attack? Let's just bring it to the WhatsApp side of things only. How do you prevent against that attack? The WhatsApp one, how do you then prevent against this one? Come on, guys. I just need one person to unmute themselves and then answer them.
Set up MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Multi-factor authentication on a WhatsApp, like we bring it down now. I see where you're going with multi-factor authentication. So the multi-factor authentication what introduce is bringing in is that we don't want to have one channel of communication to verify this conversation. So we're creating layers. So on a WhatsApp, let's say now, let's say Mduduzi now is the one asking for money from my side. Mduduzi via WhatsApp, he says, "Hey bro, send me $1,000. I'm in trouble. I need it right now." Remember, we said social engineering, there's an agency, there's fear, there's like this thing has to be done now. So Mduduzi will send me a message and say, okay, not Mduduzi, but someone else, an attacker, acting as if they are Mduduzi, saying, okay, I need the money. I'm in trouble right now. I need you to bail me out. You know, I need the 1,500 fast. Okay. Now, how do I then make sure that this is Mduduzi? Then to create another layer, we call it an open bounds, whereby you create another layer of communication. So I will have to call Mduduzi. You see now, because I've received a message from WhatsApp. Now I have to call Mduduzi before I transfer the funds. I'm like, "Hey, Mduduzi," just to get his voice, right? So you are like doing your due diligence there to say, okay, this is Mduduzi via WhatsApp, send me this. But before I transfer, I need another method, another layer of verifying this conversation. Is it really coming from him? So if the voice now, most of the times, because it's not Mduduzi, these guys, what they do is they will not pick up the call. They not pick up the call. So sometimes they're not picking up the call because the call is not going to them. They just on WhatsApp, but the call is going directly to Mduduzi. So Mduduzi now, once he receives my call, you find that he will tell me, "No, I never sent you a WhatsApp message like that." Then he realizes now that his account has been cloned. So you need to just add a layer of security just to verify is the really Mduduzi requesting this amount of money. All right, let's go back to the conversation there that we're having at the top there on the AI part. But these are now these are not familiar, what's the word? These are common these days, right? These type of attacks, the AI attacks, they are common these days. So we're saying phishing has been elevated now to AI. So AI generates a grammatical perfect personalized email. Back in the day, to easily identify this email address was coming from a scammer. Like you remember those scams or those email addresses that used to come from, says, "Yeah, I'm a king, I'm a prince, I'm stranded somewhere else. Please transfer this amount of money, and then I will help you out. I will give your money back after I'm what." So those emails were easy for us to identify them because the grammar, they usually had lots of grammars, right? Lot of errors within them. But these days, they are using AI to structure or to draft these emails. So now they sound more professional. You don't really pick up these grammar errors because now they're professionally done. They're done by AI. So victims are more likely to trust and click because it sounds like it's coming from the bank. You know, AI perfected that to sound like a bank, right? And then voice cloning, that's the one that we're discussing now. Audio mimics executives or loved ones. And then used in scams like fake ransom calls or fund transfer, where you want to transfer funds, all right? Video deepfakes, we have seen these, the Russia and then Ukraine wars. We have seen the video, the deepfakes there. So realistic fake video calls impersonate CFOs or managers, and then one attack led to a 25 million transfer. So we have real life where it happened, where the transfer of 25 million was done because of the deepfake. Check it online now. Just say the deepfake attack that managed to transfer 25 million. You will see online it happened. And then automated chatbots. AI bots simulate human conversation to build trust. So they can adjust to the conversation there, quickly change so that they can sound human. You can see now how difficult to detect these types of social engineering attacks that are generated by AI. So can run thousands of scams simultaneously. So they can run different scams simultaneously to gain information from different people or to win, get these 25 millions or any whatever amount of money using these automated chatbots. Dynamic lie systems, AI adapts narrative in real time based on victim responses. So this one it adapts because these days when these scammers, when they scam you, you try by all means to follow along and then try to see their behavior, how they are communicating with you. Now the AI, what they do is they're adapting to your conversations. The way you are communicating with them, they adapt, change to that tone so that they can't be detected. So it increases the success rate of fraud, right? So you can see we have a lot of these click fix attacks. AI summarizers are tricked into outputting malware instructions. So we have now the AI enhanced social engineering attacks, which becomes difficult for just standard user or just a non-tech person to detect these. Okay, let me just go back that side. Where was I? It kicked me out. Did my John the Ripper finish? Let me see if it was successful. You can see my John the Ripper, it takes time to decrypt longer passwords, but shorter passwords, it will take a few seconds and then it will be done. All right, I think there's still more to cover when it comes to cybersecurity, but for your computer A+, you need to know, where is that? You need to know these types of attacks, right? You need to know these type of attacks. You need to know the terminology. When they say whaling, what does that mean? When they say phishing, what does that mean? Vishing, and all of those things. All right, we have another attack. Let me wrap it up on this slide. We have we spoke about the external versus internal threats, right? External versus internal threats. External, this is someone from the outside trying to access our systems. And then internal threats, these are people within our organization. The threat, it can be coming from where they are deleting sensitive information by mistake or intentionally. And then we have this term called footprinting threats. So the footprinting is one of the ways that we use to gather more information about a target, gather more information about a system, right? So that's footprinting is you are using different tools to gather more information about a system. All right, that is footprinting. So footprinting is an information gathering. It's just like an information gathering thread. So an attacker attempts to learn about the configuration of a network. So let me show you the footprinting. We have done the footprinting before. So let me cancel this out because it might take forever to finish because the other password is way too strong. Let's say Control C. Okay, I've canceled, I've aborted the session. So footprinting, we can use the tools like your Nmap. Last time we used Nmap to find out, let me just do this, find more information about the system. If config, so we used Nmap to do footprinting. So you can see this network is 192.168.216. So I want to scan this network. I want to find out the live IP addresses. So I want to use Nmap. So let me say Nmap. I can use dash. Let me just say 192.168. Was it 216.0/24? Let me just run that. Let's see how long it might take forever. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing footprinting, right? Footprinting, as we said, it's a process of gathering information. What type of information are you gathering? So you are gathering information, for example, you want to know the network, like the IP addresses, the security systems that are used within this organization. So you are gathering, you're doing your research on your target. You're doing your research on a target. So as I said last time, that hacking is different from the movies. We go through different processes, different steps. We have steps where we're gathering information. We have steps whereby we are scanning. Right now I'm doing a scan. Let's see how long it will take. Okay, I want to use a better one. Okay, finally it's done. So here it's done. Let me see. Now it won't give me detail. I want to make it, I want to just get a response. Let me control it. I don't want to do a deep scan, a deep search. I just want to do a simple search on this. All right, last time we spoke about being stealthy, right? Nmap, let me just be stealthy. Stealthy is you're trying not to be detected by this network, right? -S. So scan stealthy. We said 192.168. What? 216.0/24. Let me see. Was this the correct IP address? 216. Because a scan tab which requires root privileges. Yes, I am a root. I am root. Okay, so let's see so we want to see which systems responded. I want to simplify it. Okay, let me make it better. Let me make it better again one more time. Let me make it better one more time. I wanna do a ping scan only, SN. Okay, I want them to respond only. Okay, finally. Check here. So this is footprinting. We have found out that in this network, there is a device that is using this IP address 192.168.216.2. And then there's another device that is using 216.135. There's another one that is using 192.168.216.254. And then there's this one that is using 192.168.216.128. So this is what we call footprinting. You are scanning your network, you're looking for more information about your target. Okay, my time is up. My time is up. Don't want to take you. Don't want to take your time, but at least we managed to cover so far. Let me see how far we had. We managed to cover enough for today. Next time, I think we want to have another class next week, Thursday. Where is this? Any questions before I close? Any questions? Any questions before I close? Any questions before I close? Guys on Teams, guys on TikTok, YouTube, there any questions? All right, on Teams, I don't see any questions. Okay, TikTok, no questions. All right, see you again on Thursday. And then we have a WhatsApp class. We have a WhatsApp group where we send communication about these classes. So if you're not on that WhatsApp group, please, you can request that. Or you can access the link to our WhatsApp group via TikTok. Those that are on TikTok, click the link there on our profile. Then it will take you to our WhatsApp group. So that's where we share more communication. Again, this is bootcamp. This is CompTIA A+ bootcamp. It's a fast-paced learning whereby we're trying by all means to get as much information as we can. And then after that, once we've covered all the content, you take your own time to go through the material and then prepare for the exam. If you are ready, the time when you're ready to take the exam, let me know. I have access to, we have discount, we can get the material, we can get the voucher for you. The material, we have shared the material with you guys for free. Okay, let's see. One more person on TikTok says, I have a question there. Is it Olamide? There says there's a question. What's your question, Olamide? Drop your question there. All right, otherwise, I am done for today. Let me just, there are no questions. See you guys on Thursday. If there are any changes will be communicated on WhatsApp, but I'm done for today. Thank you.